Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Cup of Joe with me, Joe Knows, where we do a review of the NCAA games or news. Since there's no games this past weekend, we will be reviewing a lot of news still going on with the NCAA football, and we'll be doing an updated preview of my picks for the upcoming NFL Sunday and Monday games. Hope you like my new hat. It's looking stupid, but I just felt like wearing it anyway. I actually went into my favorite Chinese restaurant about 2 weeks ago. I go in there like every week to pick up dinner, usually like Wednesday or Thursday night. And my man Aldo was wearing this hat. And I said, Aldo, if you ever get a chance to get another one of those hats, I'd love to have it. So he got it for me. So looks kind of like Elmer Fudd on me, but I like the colors a lot, so I decided that I'd rock it for this episode. So that's it. I might not wear it again, at least not on the show, but I was like, you know what, I got to wear it at least once. So anyway, this I wore this for you, my millions of viewers and subscribers. I hope you enjoy it. Anyway, before we get into the content, just some friendly reminders. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and give us that 5-star Apple review because we deserve it. Also, where you can find the show, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, and Facebook, where we have two pages. That is Toilets to Titles and When a Family Breaks. And you can go to patreon.com/toilets to titles to learn how you can further support this show. And we have our own website that launched back in August. Very proud of it. It's an awesome website. It's toiletstotitles.com. It has all of our videos, articles, tons of fantasy and NFL football content. Check it out. It is great. I'm so proud of that website. And following this show, I'm kind of like the warm-up act for one of our biggest shows here at Toilets and Titles, and that is the Blitz. And that goes on at 10:30 this morning, every Sunday morning. And that is our fantasy start sit advice program. And it's hosted by Mike, Alex, and Justin. And they give their own advice, but they also, any questions you have, send them through the chat. They will address every single question that is sent through the chat. That show starts at around 10:30 and it goes on until like 11:30, maybe 12 o'clock, depending upon how much viewer traffic they're getting, how many questions they're getting. But they will address every single question that comes in. It's very much a viewer driven program. So please send your chats through. They always give great advice. I'm usually in the chat on that show anyway afterwards for at least a little bit, and I love it a lot. So check it out. It's called the Blitz. Again, starts at like 10:30 a.m. following this program. Okay, let's get into our college content here, guys. So there are no games this past weekend. That's okay. There's a little lull before we get to the bowl games. However, big news: Heisman winner. We have a Heisman winner, Heisman Trophy winner, and not a surprise. It was Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, who's a sophomore. This was his sophomore year. Well, it still is his sophomore year. He beat out Michigan defensive end Aiden Hutchinson, who came in second place, uh, Pittsburgh quarterback Kenny Pickett, who came in third, and Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud, who obviously came in fourth. Bryce Young deserved it. I know there were probably plenty of people who wanted to see Aiden Hutchinson win it. And listen, he would have been deserving of it. It is very hard for a non-quarterback player to win the Heisman Trophy, just because quarterback is the most important position in any of like the big four American sports. It is quarterback is the most important position, and especially when you get a season like Bryce Young had for Alabama, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt if I had a vote, I would have been voting for Bryce Young as well. And I love Aiden Hutchinson. I would love if for somehow my New York Giants wound up with Aiden Hutchinson in this upcoming draft. Aiden Hutchinson could wind up being the overall number one pick in this draft coming up. This is not the upcoming draft is not it's not a great QB class at all. Not that you can't have quarterbacks in this class who could wind up being really good, but they're definitely far from a sure thing. They're far from certain. So Aiden Hutchinson is one of those non-quarterback players who is as sure as you can get. So, but he came in second place, very respectable. But again, Bryce Young, quarterback Alabama, had a fantastic year. He was the best quarterback this year, and especially after the game last week against Georgia, the Bulldogs, who were undefeated. Their defense was Georgia's defense is phenomenal this year, and that is the side of the football that Georgia really relied on this year to be undefeated up until last week when they played Alabama in the SEC championship game. And Bryce Young tore them apart. Bryce Young and his weapons tore them apart. So, but even before that, Bryce Young was just having an incredible season. Every week you looked at the box score, it'd be like 350 to 420 passing yards, like 4 touchdowns. The guy was just, just putting up those major stats every single game. So hats off to Bryce Young, an impressive young man, impressive young quarterback. And I don't think he's coming out into the draft this year. I think you have to be, if I recall correctly, with the NFL rules that came into place, like, I don't know, maybe like 5, maybe 10 years ago. I think you have to be like put in 3 years as a player in the NCAA, or maybe just, I think you have to make it at least past your junior year, and then you can go into the draft. So I don't believe he's going to be if Bryce Young were going into the draft this year, he'd be hands down the number one pick overall. But he's not going into the draft. So I believe you have to be a junior. You have to complete your junior year to go into the draft. But anyway, hats off to Bryce Young, who is a sophomore, for winning the Heisman Trophy. He deserved it. Anyway, there's other big college news. The college coaching carousel. It is in full effect. Not a surprise after the regular season ended. This happens every year, and that's one of the things that makes college football so exciting. Besides the fact that you're always getting players leaving college to the NFL, you have new players coming up from high school. You've got players developing from you being freshmen and sophomore players to being these wonderkind junior and senior players who just super talented. You also have coaches moving up, moving on, and moving out. So I'm just going to go. There's a lot of college coaching changes already over the past week, but I'm just going to go over the most notable ones, the most important ones. Number one, Lincoln Riley left. He was the head coach of Oklahoma, as you know. Lincoln Riley left. I'm sorry, he left Oklahoma for the USC job. He's replacing Clay Helton at USC, and a lot of people are happy to see this because they want to see like USC and also just the teams out in the Pacific become more competitive. The programs haven't been that competitive for a while. USC was phenomenal in the early 2000s under Pete Carroll before he moved on to the Seattle Seahawks job. USC was a powerhouse, and it hasn't been that way for a long time. All the strength in NCAA football has been pretty much centered in the southeastern part of the country, and especially the SEC conference, as well as Ohio State as well, who usually can give those SEC teams a run for their money usually. But that's pretty much it. So a lot of people who are happy to see this because they want to see USC and some of the teams. The thinking is that if USC becomes really good, that it's going to make the other teams on the West Coast be competitive as well in order to keep up with USC. And I get the argument. I was disappointed to see him leaving Oklahoma. I don't blame him or anything. Listen, you get to make any move that you want to, but I would like to see him stay at Oklahoma. I want to see a parity in the NCAA as well. I'd like to see USC or some other West Coast teams, whether it's UCLA or Stanford, become powerhouses as well. But I'd also like to see it in the Midwest. I'd like to see it in Oklahoma or Texas, or Nebraska, or Oklahoma State, who had a very good year this year. So I would have liked to have seen State Oklahoma and just build them into a powerhouse, like a regional powerhouse. And but he's moving on to USC. Congratulations to Lincoln Riley and on being offered and accepting that job. And he is. I forgot to put this in the banner below when I was creating it. I only realized afterwards I forgot to do it. But Lincoln Riley is being replaced as the head coach at Oklahoma by Clemson defensive coordinator Brent Venables. And you're going to see as we go through the list of coaching changes that Clemson lost both its DC and its OC. So again, Lincoln Riley is moving on from Oklahoma to USC, and Lincoln Riley is being replaced at Oklahoma by Clemson defensive coordinator Brent Venables, who was a very good NFL player as well. So let's go back to this tag over here, and let me get rid of this banner. Actually, I'll keep that banner up. Okay, so we did Lincoln Riley. Number 2, Brian Kelly is leaving Notre Dame. I'm sad about that because Notre Dame is my number 1 college team. He's replacing Ed Orgeron, or is it Orgeron? Orgeron, I guess it is. I always forgot how to pronounce his name, but Ed Orgeron at LSU. So again, Brian Kelly is leaving Notre Dame for the LSU job. LSU did win an NCAA championship. What was it, 10, like 2 or 3 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago with Joe Burrow at the helm as quarterback. LSU did win an NCAA championship. That was under Ed Orgeron. I believe there was something going on at LSU. I mean, they didn't have a good year this year, but there was something else that's been going on. I don't remember something on going on with Ed Orgeron. I don't know if it was a recruiting scandal or something else, but I'm not surprised that he's out. I remember there was something big that was going on, and so I'm not surprised that he's out. But he did win an NCAA championship for LSU. Good for him. A few years ago when he had Joe Burrow as quarterback. But again, Brian Kelly is moving from Notre Dame to LSU to take that head coaching job. Um, Brian Kelly, intern at Notre Dame, is being replaced by his own defensive coordinator, Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman is, again, he's replacing Brian Kelly as the head coach of Notre Dame. And I could be wrong about this. I'm wondering, Marcus Freeman, he's African American. I'm wondering if he's the first African American head coach for Notre Dame. I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe I don't think so, but he may be. He may be. So I'm just curious about that. I've got to look into that before I started the show. I am curious about that. But again, Brian Kelly's defensive coordinator at Notre Dame is taking over the head coaching job at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame is the team that I root for the most. So good for you, Marcus Freeman. I wish you the best of luck. And moving on, we have Bill Napier, who is leaving Louisiana. He's leaving the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, who had a very good year this year. And I'll tell you, Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, not to be confused with LSU, with Louisiana State University. This is Louisiana. These are the Raging Cajuns. They've become very good at producing very good NFL running back talent over the past few years. But so that's which is a great thing. But Bill Napier, he was head coach of Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. They did have a very good year this year, and I think they ended the season ranked in the top 25. He's replacing Dan Mullen at Florida. Now that is definitely a step up. That is a job. That is a move I definitely would have made if I were Bill Napier. Nothing against Louisiana or the Raging Cajuns, but I definitely would have loved to have taken that job at Florida, at Gainesville. That's awesome. So the Gators have a new head coach. It's Bill Napier. I wish him the best of luck. He's replacing Dan Mullen. I'm glad. I'm not glad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to see Dan Mullen go. He had some good seasons there with Florida, especially 2 years ago, and then he lost a lot of that talent to the draft. Especially Pitts, who went to Atlanta. And also the Giants took Kadarius Toney. He was a wide receiver, so he lost a lot of talent in the draft this past year, and so I feel bad for Dan Mullen, but good luck to Bill Napier, who's moving on from the Raging Cajuns to the Florida Gators. And then we've got Mario Cristobal, who's leaving Oregon. He's replacing Manny Diaz at the University of Miami. That's actually the job I really would have loved, because Miami and Florida too. Notre Dame is the college team that I root for the most, but my backup teams that are right behind them are like the three big Florida teams, University of Miami and Florida State University. I like the Florida teams as well. So Mario Cristobal, who had a pretty good year at Oregon, disappointing to be honest with you. Oregon, I forgot where they finished ranked. Maybe it might have been like 10, 11, 12, but they should have been better than that. And as at one point they got, as I think, high up in the rankings as number three, I think. And then they had, I forgot who they lost to, but they had a loss that was just like unacceptable. And they had another recent like really bad loss too. They dropped down in the rankings. Oregon, I guess, I mean, overall, I mean, they were better. Obviously, I think they finished like 10, 11, 12 in the rankings, I think, but um, they had a disappointing season. But anyway, Cristobal replaces Manny Diaz at the University of Miami. And then Georgia Bulldog defensive coordinator Dan Lanning is taking over for Cristobal at Oregon. Now, again, like I said earlier, Georgia Bulldogs had an amazing year defensively. Offensively, really not much to be honest with, to talk about with Georgia. To be honest, they have like a really talented freshman tight end. Um, but on offense, really their quarterback's not all that great. They're really not all that good, Georgia, offensively this year. That's why I wasn't surprised that they had their asses handed to them by Alabama last week. I really wasn't surprised at all. I think you can't just have a top tier defense going against Alabama. You need to be a complete team. But the Bulldogs defense was phenomenal this year, and that was led by defensive coordinator Dan Lanning, who is taking over for Mario Cristobal at Oregon. So again, Cristobal is moving on to Oregon. I'm sorry, Cristobal is moving on to Miami, to the University of Miami, and Dan Lanning is taking over at Oregon. And then just some other notable hires too. Clemson offensive coordinator Tony Elliott is going to Virginia to take the head coaching job. So Clemson again, they're losing both of their coordinators. Clemson's losing their DC, and their OC. And in this case, Tony Elliott, Clemson's offensive coordinator for the past few years, is taking over the head coaching job at Virginia. And Penn State's defensive coordinator, Brent Pry, is going to Virginia Tech to take that head coaching position. Uh, Penn State's had a really good defense for quite a while now, and Brent Pry has been their defensive coordinator for the past few years at least. So he definitely knows what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball, but now he's going to Virginia Tech to take the head coaching position. All right, bowl game schedule. There are a lot of bowl games. I'm not going to really go through all the names of the bowl games because a lot of them are long and ridiculous. And I don't think most of you care anyway. But I'm going to go through the bowl game schedule because we do have our first bowl games coming up this upcoming Friday, December 17th. We're going to have on this upcoming Friday, December 17th, you're going to have Middle Tennessee versus Toledo. And then you're going to have Northern Illinois versus Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina was, making some hay in that they were like in the middle. They were in the middle of the rankings for the top 25 for most of this year. I think they eventually dropped out. They might have wound up being not. I think they eventually dropped out of the top 25 at the very end, but for a while they got as high as like number 14, which I thought was crazy because there's such a small program that was just beating up on other small programs, and I thought it was ridiculous that they were ranked as high as 14. And then I think they wound up losing to Appalachian State, if I recall correctly. And they just, tanked after that in the rankings. I think that was the only loss that Coastal actually had. But so it'll be Northern Illinois versus Coastal Carolina. We'll see if Coastal goes postal on Northern Illinois this Friday. That's the Tail Greeter Cure Bowl. Saturday, December 18th, we've got Western Kentucky versus Appalachian State. Appalachian State is a very good smaller program. Every year they produce at least some, like a handful of talent to the NFL. Appalachian State's one of the better smaller programs. So here you can have Western Kentucky versus Appalachian State. You also have South Carolina State versus Jackson State. And again, these are the upcoming Saturday games. Then you can have UTEP versus Fresno State. UTEP is University of Texas El Paso. They'll be playing Fresno State. Then you're going to have University of Alabama Birmingham versus BYU. This should be a good game. UAB, otherwise known as University of Alabama Birmingham, is actually a pretty good smaller program, and BYU was one of the better teams in football and college football this year. I think they wound up in the rankings somewhere like top 15, maybe like 12, 13, 14, 15, something like that. So BYU is one of the best college football programs, especially this year. They're playing UAB on Saturday. Eastern Michigan versus Liberty is also on Saturday. Now, the only reason why the only thing I really have to say about this game is that you can really call this game the Malik Willis Bowl. Malik Willis is the quarterback of Liberty. He's expected to be one of the top quarterbacks in this upcoming draft, which again is an unimpressive quarterback draft. Malik Willis could wind up being the top quarterback taken in the draft, and I think that's scary. I'm not impressed with the dude, to be honest with you. This is a guy who has a lot of really good intangibles. The guy's got good size. He's got a really strong arm. He's kind of like Lamar Jackson. He's a really good scrambler. I don't think he was ever as good as Lamar Jackson was at Louisville. And I think this guy would need at least, if he were drafted, you want to take him in the second round, okay. But if you draft Malik Willis, this guy has to stay on the bench, in my opinion, for a full year in the NFL. He's got a lot of learning to do. Even his highlights, I'm not all that impressed with. I'm not impressed with that guy. But he could wind up being the number one, not the number one pick overall. I'd be shocked by that, but he could wind up being the number one quarterback overall taken in this upcoming draft. But again, this is not an impressive quarterback draft. Malik Willis, I'm not crazy about the guy. If you take him in say maybe the middle of the first round or the back end of the first round, and you want to groom this guy for a year, go for it. That's totally cool. The guy's got a lot of really good intangible traits. He's got a lot of great potential. But overall, I'm not all that impressed with that guy. But Malik Willis is the big name in that bowl game. Again, Malik Willis, quarterback from Liberty. Okay, moving on. You got Utah State versus Oregon State. Louisiana, again, the Raging Cajuns, whose head coach is moving on to, I forgot what team it was before, but Louisiana's playing Marshall. Marshall's usually one of the better, smaller programs, and so is Louisiana now. Louisiana, I think, finished somewhere in the top 25 in the rankings this year. Then you also have Old Dominion versus Tulsa. You have Kent State versus Wyoming. Then you have UTSA, that's University of Texas San Antonio versus San Diego State. San Diego State's one of my college football teams that I do root for. So me myself, I'm Notre Dame, University of Miami, Florida, Florida State, and San Diego State. They're just one of my smaller college football program darlings. So I'm rooting for San Diego State. Again, it'll be UTSA versus San Diego State in the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl. Great name, great name. Okay, so then you have on Wednesday, December. And I'm sorry that San Diego State game. That's actually Tuesday, December 21st. Wednesday, December 22nd, you have one bowl. That's Missouri versus Army. Army's actually had a respectable season. They've actually Army and Navy. Those two teams, yeah, they usually have really hard schedules. Like it seems like they're consistently playing ranked teams, and oftentimes they actually put up a pretty good fight. So maybe losing by like a touchdown, but here on Wednesday, December 22nd, you're going to have Missouri playing Army. Then on Thursday, December 23rd, you'll have North Texas versus Miami of Ohio. You'll also have University of Central Florida versus Florida. That's the Gators. That could be a pretty good game. That'll be a good game, actually. Interesting. You always get talent coming out of Florida, obviously, and you also get college talent, like good college talent going to the NFL from UCF as well. Friday, December 24th, Christmas Eve, you got Memphis versus Hawaii. Christmas, Saturday, December 25th, you have Georgia State versus Ball State. An uninspiring game, to be honest with you, on Christmas. Monday, December 27th, you have Western Michigan versus Nevada. You have Boston College versus East Carolina. And then Tuesday, December 28th, you have Houston versus Auburn. That's going to be a good game. Houston versus Auburn is going to be a good game. I think Houston wound up being finishing in the rankings, maybe like 23 or 24. Actually, they might have wound up dropping out at the end because they lost their last game to Cincinnati, but last week. But going into last week, before they lost to Cincinnati, Houston was ranked like 23, 24, 25, and they deserved it. Houston is a pretty good team. So was Auburn. Auburn was bouncing in and out of the rankings the entire season. They should be ranked in the top 25. Auburn gave Alabama everything they could handle 2 weeks ago in one of the best games this season, one of the best college games this season. Auburn gave Alabama everything it could handle. So that's going to be a good game. And again, that's Tuesday, December 28th, Houston versus Alabama. That same day, you also have Air Force versus Louisville, Mississippi State versus Texas Tech, UCLA versus North Carolina State, um, West Virginia versus Minnesota. And then on Wednesday, December 29th, you have SMU versus Virginia, Maryland versus Virginia Tech, Clemson versus Iowa State. That should be a pretty good game. Oregon versus Oklahoma. That should be a good game. I'll take Oklahoma in that game. Thursday, December 30th, North Carolina versus South Carolina, Tennessee versus Purdue. Then you have Michigan State versus Pittsburgh. That's going to be a very good game. That's the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. So it's the Peach Bowl, now known as the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Michigan State versus Pittsburgh. That's a good game. Wisconsin versus Arizona State as well. So moving on to December 31st, on New Year's Eve, you have Wake Forest versus Texas A&M, Washington State versus Miami, Central Michigan versus Boise State, and then you're going to have again on New Year's Eve, you're going to have the two big bowl games. You're going to have the Final Four teams playing each other. In the Cotton Bowl, you've got number 4 Cincinnati versus number 1 Alabama. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how Cincinnati, who's basically everyone's NCAA sweetheart this year, let's see how they handle Alabama, who's number 1. And I'm not mocking Cincinnati. Really, no one can handle Alabama except for maybe Georgia and Michigan, maybe. But Alabama's like in a tier all by themselves. But you got number 4 Cincinnati versus number 1 Alabama. I'm really excited to see that game. And then following that, a few hours later, in the Orange Bowl, you have number 3 Georgia versus number 2 Michigan. I still haven't decided who I think is going to win that game. I'm kind of rooting for Michigan. It really doesn't matter to me who wins, but I'm rooting for Michigan, but I'm not sure yet who's going to win that game. And then on New Year's Day, January 1st, you have Penn State versus Arkansas, Iowa versus Kentucky, um, Notre Dame versus Oklahoma State. That'll be a really, really good game. Then you'll have the Rose Bowl, Ohio State versus Utah. That'll be a good game. Then you have the Sugar Bowl, which is Ole Miss versus Baylor. And then Tuesday, January 4th, you're going to have LSU versus Kansas State. And then the national championship game will be on Monday, January 10th. Monday, January 10th, you're going to have some combination of Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, or Cincinnati playing each other for the championship. So I'm really looking forward to that game, of course. All right, let's move on. And just a quick recap of the top four: Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, Cincinnati. At this point, I'm kind of rooting, kind of pulling for Michigan. They're I think they're more realistic than Cincinnati. I'm not really. I think Cincinnati's got talent. I think they're a good team, but I'm not really. I've never really bought into that Cincinnati's a top four team. But I'd love to be proven wrong by Cincinnati. I'd love to be proven wrong, and I don't expect them to beat Alabama, but I'd love to see them really put up a good, hard-fought, respectable game against Alabama. If Cincinnati actually upset Alabama, holy cow, holy cow. Now we're talking. But I am excited to see that game. I'm excited to see what Cincinnati can do against a real top tier ranked team. Michigan and Georgia, that is going to be such a good, I think, evenly fought battle. And to be honest with you, I don't know. I think I might have to go with Michigan in that game. I think I'm picking Michigan. I am actually rooting for Michigan, but I think I have to actually pick them to win that game too. I think they're going to win. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Georgia won, of course, but I think those two teams are really, really evenly matched. All right, let's move on to my Week 14 picks. Again, I did these picks originally on Wednesday. I've updated them just a little bit this morning. So I'll be doing these are my picks with the spread and straight up. And let me do share screen over here. Let me get rid of this over here. I don't need that anymore. All right, let's do share screen. Boom. Window. Here we go. Okay, everyone, you can see that. There you go. Okay, so these are my picks for Week 14. Again, it's Sunday. They have been updated, and the four teams with the bye week. I can't wait till the byes are over with. I'm so done with the byes. The Colts, the Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Eagles. Those are some really good teams that are sitting on the bench this week. So that's disappointing. I can't wait till the bye weeks are done. I wonder if this is the last bye week. I hope it is. I'm sick of the byes. Anyway, the Thursday night game, the Steelers at the Vikings. The Vikings were giving 3 points. As you can see, I took the Steelers getting the points, and I took the Steelers straight up. And that's nothing against Minnesota. I felt like the Steelers with both Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick back, that they were going to pull out a close game here. I was wrong. For most of the game, it was a complete blowout. I think the Vikings were up like 28-0 or 35-0 at some point. It was ridiculous. And somehow they let the Steelers all the way back in. The Steelers almost came all the way back. I think the final score was like an 8-point differential. I think it was something like, I don't know, like 36-28 or something like that. I think was the final score. And the Steelers marched down the field with like a minute left, and they almost they got into the red zone, and they almost scored the tying touchdown. They would have needed the 2-point conversion too, but it was almost an historic comeback by the Steelers. And quite frankly, it was like kind of something you kind of expect from the Vikings, just like to blow this lead. And it's ridiculous because the Vikings are actually a really talented team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They're not the defensive team that they used to be, but the Vikings just have a way of just blowing things, and they almost blew this game, which is ridiculous. So the Vikings got a much needed win. The Vikings are still very much in the hunt for the final spot, the final playoff spot in the NFC. And quite frankly, the Vikings would deserve it in terms of talent. In terms of talent, the Vikings would deserve it. They're a good team. They're a good team, and they have the talent to definitely win that final playoff spot in the NFC. But hey, they did get the win against a very tough opponent. So hats off to the Vikings for getting that win, for hanging on. Hats off. But I'm off to a bad start with my picks. So again, I took the Steelers getting the points and the Steelers straight up, and I lost on both of those. The upcoming games: the Ravens at the Browns. The Browns are giving 2.5 points. I'm taking the Ravens getting the points and the Ravens straight up. I'm really on the fence with this one. I don't like the way the Browns are trending, especially with Mayfield and his injury. The receiving game looks like crap. However, the Browns, the strength of their offense is the running game. They have both Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt back. The Ravens are really beat up all over their team, including on defense. They lost Marlon Humphrey for the season now, their best cornerback. one of the best quarterbacks in the league too. Um, and the Ravens they haven't been as stout against the run as they normally are. So this game's in Cleveland. You know what? I'll tell you what. I'm going to change this. Oh, I had the Ravens getting the points. It's the Browns getting 2.5 points. You know what? Let's check this out real quick. Did I mess up here? Guys, I'm sorry. Hang on one second. Did I mess up on this spread here? This game is in Cleveland, and is it? I just want to confirm that it's the Ravens giving. Oh no, yeah, I'm sorry. It's the Browns giving 2.5 points, right? So the Browns are giving 2.5 points. All right, yeah, I'm going to stick with this. No, you know what? I'm going to do Ravens getting the points. I'm going to take the Browns straight up. Even though I don't trust the Browns at all. I should stick with my gut feeling on this, but the Ravens are really, really beat up, really beat up. Um, but okay, so I'm going to go with the Ravens getting the points, and the Browns straight up since the game is in Cleveland. The Jaguars at the Titans. The Titans are giving 8.5 points. They do have Julio Jones back. I'm very worried about the Titans, who were looking great for most of this year, and then their injuries started. Julio Jones is back. I really don't know how much of a big deal that's going to be, to be honest with you, but I think the Titans should be able to handle the Jaguars easily. The Titans are giving 8.5 points. I'm taking the Titans giving the points and the Titans straight up. Raiders at the Chiefs. The Chiefs are giving 9.5 points. I think that's a pretty big spread. Um, I'm taking the Raiders getting the points and the Chiefs straight up to win, but I'm taking the Raiders getting the points. The Raiders, I do think are overall lack. They don't have enough talent on offense, and but I think they have enough. Actually, Darren Waller, I think, is out this game. Come to think of it, he might be out, so that's going to hurt. But the thing with the Chiefs is that the strength of their offense is obviously the passing game, and that's actually the strength of the Raiders' defense is getting to the quarterback, and their secondary is pretty good. The Raiders don't really have a good run defense, but the Chiefs don't have a good run offense anyway. So um, it's a divisional game. They always play each other, really, really tough. The Chiefs are looking better and better. They were looking really wobbly for the first half of the season. The past like 3 or 4 weeks, the defense has been looking it's been looking good. It's been looking respectable. And the Chiefs have been playing better overall. So I'm definitely going with the Chiefs to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Raiders getting the points, getting 9.5 points in this game. Saints at the Jets. The Saints are giving 5.5 points. I've thought for even beginning of the season, I thought the Saints were overrated. A lot of people were on the Saints train. I wasn't buying into it. I never bought into their offense outside of Alvin Kamara. But they're playing the Jets. I think the Jets, I'm taking the Jets getting the points. It's in the Meadowlands. So I'm taking the Jets getting the points. I'm taking the Saints straight up. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the Saints wound up destroying the Jets in this game. The Saints do have a very good defense, but and they have Alvin Kamara as well. I believe he's playing this week. I believe he's playing. I got to check that. Check that. Don't take my word on that. I have to check that out. I believe he's playing, but check that out. I forgot to check it out before I started this episode. But I'll take the Saints. I'm sorry, the Saints are giving 5.5 points. I'll take the Jets getting the points in the Meadowlands. And because I do think it's going to be a pretty close game, and the Jets are playing better. I do think, unfortunately, I think Elijah Moore, young wide receiver, who's been coming on really well for like the past 5 or 6 weeks for the Jets. I think he's out this game, I believe, but I could be wrong about that. I think Elijah Moore is out for the Jets, and that's going to hurt because he's been playing very well for them. But I'm going to take the Jets getting the points at the Meadowlands. I'll take the Saints straight up to win. Cowboys at Washington. Cowboys are giving 4.5 points. That is a big spread to be giving at your opponent's facility. The Cowboys are giving the 4.5 points in Washington, but I'm going to take the Cowboys giving the points. The Cowboys straight up. This should not be a close game, and the Cowboys need to really start straightening themselves out. They need to start, rolling off some wins and just playing like they should. They need to start really putting up points like the offense is capable of, and the defense has been playing well, but we're getting close to playoff time here, and you want to see the Cowboys start living up to how good they really are, I think. And in my opinion, for my personal rankings, I've got the Cowboys as the second best team in the NFL right now, behind the Buccaneers. But so I'm taking the Cowboys, giving the points, and the Cowboys straight up. Falcons at the Panthers. The Panthers are giving 2.5 points. I'm taking the Falcons getting the points and the Falcons straight up. Not that the Falcons are a great team, but they've actually had a respectable season, and they've done better than I think the vast majority of us thought that they have. And Carolina is just trending downwards. Christian McCaffrey's actually he's obviously down. He's out for the season. I'm not even sure who the quarterback is going to be this weekend. And Chuba Hubbard really hasn't. He had like I think one good game earlier in the season, filling in for CMC, but since then he hasn't really done much. And I still like Chuba Hubbard, but I just think overall the Panthers aren't looking very good. I think they're trending downwards. They just fired their offensive coordinator as well, Joe Brady, I think his name was. So there's a lot going on in Carolina. I think I'm going to take the Falcons getting the points and the Falcons straight up for the upset in this game. Seahawks at the Texans. Seattle's looking a little better. They had a good game last week. They beat the 49ers in Seattle, and Seattle's giving 9 points. I'll take Seattle giving the points and Seattle straight up just because it's the Texans who are, the Texans had some fight in them earlier in the season, but not so much over the past few weeks. So I don't think Seattle's a good team at all outside of Russell Wilson and two of his really good wide receivers. Other than that, Seattle's not a good team. But I will take Seattle giving 9 points and Seattle straight up at Houston. Lines at the Broncos. The Broncos are giving 11.5. I think this point spread was 10 points Wednesday, and it's now up to 11.5 points. And I believe because the Lions this week got hit with COVID. So I'm not sure who's starting. You really want to check before you have any involvement in this game. And for fantasy purposes, any Lions players, you want to double check to see who is playing before you start any Lions players this week in fantasy, because they've been hit, I think, with the COVID bug. So the line is now up to the Broncos giving 11.5 points. I'm taking the Broncos giving the points and the Broncos straight up. I think the Lions, they're a good team they're not a good team, but they fight. They've been in most of their games this year, and they're coming off their first win. Oh, well, what was it, 2 weeks ago, I guess, against the Vikings. Lions had their first win, but this game's in Denver. Lions, the Detroit Lions are they're a dome team. They're playing in Denver in December, and I have to go. And Broncos have a good defense, even without Von Miller. They have got a good defense. They still have a respectable offense. I got to go with the Broncos, giving the points and the Broncos straight up. Giants at the Chargers. The Chargers, Chargers are giving 9.5 points. I think the line actually went down from 10 to 9.5. One of the injured Giants must be back. I don't know. Maybe it's Barkley. I forgot who it is, but it really doesn't matter in my mind. The Giants are so beat up. They have no chance in this game whatsoever. I'm not even sure. I think Mike Glennon may be the starting quarterback, and it doesn't matter. He stinks. If not, it'll be Jake Fromm. It doesn't matter. I'm taking the Chargers, giving the points, and the Chargers straight up. Um, 49ers at the Bengals. This is a really, really tough game, and I'm on the fence about this one. This game's in Cincinnati, and I'm very surprised that the 49ers are giving 2 points. So I'm going to take the Bengals getting the points, and I'll take the Bengals straight up. The Bengals are still 7-5 on the season. The 49ers are 6-6. This is a really good, interesting matchup. And I think originally I was taking the 49ers both ways, but now I'm taking the Bengals both ways. I'll take the Bengals at home. I'll take the Bengals at home. So I'll take the Bengals getting the points at home, and I'm taking the Bengals straight up for, I guess, what would be considered an upset. The Bills at the Buccaneers, the game of the week. The Bills at the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are given 3.5 points. I'm taking the Bills getting the points. I think this is going to be a really close game, and I think that the Bills were, and I felt this early on too in the season. I didn't think the Bills were as good. Definitely one of the best teams in the NFL, but I didn't think they were as good as most people thought they were. Especially with the running game, that really worried me a lot. And that's really the only thing that worries me, but it's a big thing. It's a big thing. So I'm not overwhelmed by their wide receiver talent either. I love Stephon Diggs; he's good, and Cole Beasley's he's a good slot guy. He's a good slot wide receiver. But and obviously Josh Allen is a great NFL talent. And they've got Knox too, Dawson Knox. I think his last name is Knox, tight end. He's really come on this season. He's had a really good season for Buffalo, but I still think they need more in the wide receiving department, a little more, and they definitely need a lot more when it comes to the running game. So I do think the Bills have some important weaknesses that I'm just that I think really limits really limits them. to a point. But I do think this is going to be a really good game. And Ben, I think it's going to be a really close game. I'm taking the Bills getting the points, and I'm taking the Buccaneers straight up. I got to tell you, though, there's something in my gut. It's something in my gut that's telling me there's an upset in the making here with the Bills winning at Tampa Bay. Even though I've had all season long the Buccaneers is my number one team, my number one ranked team. I just feel like I just feel like there's an upset coming, and it's just more of a gut feeling than anything. But this is what I'm going to go with. This is what my logic is telling me. Bills getting the points and the Buccaneers straight up. Bears at the Packers. The Packers are giving 11.5 points. I'm taking the Packers giving the points and the Packers straight up. It doesn't matter to me who's quarterbacking for the Bears. I don't care if it's Justin Fields or Dalton or whoever else. I'm taking the Packers giving the points and the Packers straight up. Rams at the Cardinals. Actually, this is the second game of the week. So there are two games of the week. One is Bills at Tampa Bay, and then you've got the Rams at the Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals handily defeated the Rams earlier this season, and it was shocking at the time because everyone expected at least for it to be a close game, if not for the Rams to win. Cardinals really took care of business easily against the Rams. This game's in Arizona. Um, the Cardinals are giving 2.5 points. I'm taking the Rams getting the points and the Cardinals straight up. I think this is going to be definitely a closer game than last time. Odell Beckham Jr. has been, assuming he's playing, assuming OBJ is playing, I think he is, but you want to check that out as well because he could very well be injured. You want to see if OBJ is playing this game. But OBJ, besides his first game with the Rams, is like the previous two games. He did well for them. He's had at least a touchdown in the last two games that he played. And also I think Von Miller is going to help out the Rams defense a lot. Rams defense was already good. I think he's going to help out a lot. But I'll take the Rams getting the points. I think this is going to be like a 1 point game. I'm going to take the Rams getting the points. I'll take the Cardinals straight up in Arizona. But here's another gut feeling about this game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams won this game on the rematch, even though it's in Arizona and Arizona handled them easily in Los Angeles, like a month and a half ago. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams, it's just a gut feeling of mine. Anyway, that's the Monday night game. That's going to be a great game. And everyone, that's a wrap for the show. But real quick, before you go, our in-season schedule here at Toilets to Titles. Okay, let me get rid of this share screen. There we go. Okay, this is our in-season schedule here at Toilets to Titles. Monday night, we've got our waiver wire program. That's for Patreon members only, but it is released on YouTube at around 12 o'clock on Tuesday. Tuesday at 8 p.m., Toilets to Titles, our flagship program. Wednesday at around 9 p.m. is my other show, Joe Knows NFL Review Preview. That's where I do a review of the previous week's games for the NFL, and I do my first initial preview for the upcoming NFL games. Wednesday following that show, Wednesday at around 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is Dollars to Deuces, which is our weekly betting advice program. Thursday at 8 p.m. And when I say weekly betting advice program, it's NFL and NCAA, but mostly NFL weekly betting advice. Thursday at 8 p.m. is a dash of DFS. Saturday at 7:30 p.m. is Down Under Dynasty. We have a crew of three great guys down in Australia who are really into NFL, really into fantasy football, and really into dynasty fantasy football. And so they're on at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Saturday nights, talking dynasty fantasy football, what they like, what they want to do, what their plans are, and also give advice too. So if you have any questions, looking for some advice and guidance in dynasty, please send it through the chat. They will address any and all questions. And then let's see, Sunday is the show you're watching right now, Cup of Joe, where I recap the NCAA games or news. And I also give my updated preview for the Sunday and Monday NFL games. And then following the show again is the Blitz, which is hosted by Mike, Alex, and Justin. I have down here that it's a call-in show. That's what we want to get to. However, it's not a call-in show yet, but any questions you have looking for advice, guidance on who to start, who to sit in fantasy football, send it through the chat. They will address every single question that comes through the chat. Great crew of guys, great show. Absolutely love it. So anyway, guys, also before I go, let me get rid of that. Before I go, here at the bottom are the Twitter handles for me and all of my teammates here at Toilets and Titles. Great crew. Please try to follow everyone on Twitter. It's a great crew. We all contribute. We all bring something to the table, whether it's different types of content videos or articles, or we're all contributing. So great crew of people to be a part of here on a great team. And just another friendly reminder, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, hit that bell, give us that 5-star Apple review, because I think, in my opinion, it's pretty humble, but it's my opinion that we deserve it. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. Have yourselves a great Sunday. Enjoy your college games. Enjoy your NFL games. And like I said, the bowl games are actually starting this Friday, and enjoy those as well. They're going to be going on starting Friday, and they'll be going on pretty much until early January. Every single day, you'll have at least some bowl games. So anyway, everyone have a great weekend. Take care, and I will see you on Wednesday with my other show Wednesday night, the NFL Review Preview. Take care, everyone. I'm out of here. Bye.